Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's weather tonight. I am so excited to talk about the weather today. Oh my gosh, y'all. Okay. Oh my goodness. We've got. I'm so freaking excited. So apparently today has been the volcanic eruption in Iceland. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. We had the Grindavik eruption actually began today. Oh, I don't want that quite full screen. We had the Grindavik eruption today. I want to move myself over so that we can see. Here we see. Let's see. It has been observed, for instance, that earthquakes generally happen immediately after an eclipse, and also when there are planets in Taurus and Scorpio. Blah blah blah. That is a quote from Pierce in predicting the weather using astrology. Let's just get into. I'm gonna go first through the astrology of what just happened, and then we're gonna go through the physical happenings. So today at about noon 10 past noon in Iceland, so that's UTC time, conveniently, there was an earthquake swarm that began triggered the eruption. It began yesterday earlier up in the Sudnukar crater, further north, closer to where the December 18th eruption happened. We had a swarm of earthquakes yesterday and the day before. And then today at noon, we saw a big swarm of earthquakes moving into the town of Grindavik, actually in the near closer and closer to the bay itself. And those happened right around the time that Mercury entered Capricorn. As you can see here on the natal wheel I've got this is the natal wheel for 1210 in Iceland today. You can see that the rising was in Scorpio. Let me go ahead and get my notes up here so that I don't miss anything. If I'm talking too fast, please let me know. But I have my chat up. If anybody comes in, I hope that I get to see you, but maybe I won't. But please feel free to comment anything in the comments down below. I will be checking them. Oh, I'm sorry. No, 1210 was the, I said 1210. 1210 is when the eruption happened. 5:30 a.m. is when this earthquake swarm happened. So just before dawn today. And you can see that we have the Sun, Mars, Mercury, Venus, and Pluto all in the second house. And this is done for in Iceland. It would be the second house Placidus in Iceland. We had that earthquake swarm happened just as Mercury entered Capricorn. And when it entered Capricorn, it had semi-sextile to Pluto, which is 30 degrees and exactly parallel to Pluto. Let's think of Mercury as the electrical trigger for all of the potential energy that has been building up in the underneath the ground. It really started to set things off when Mercury entered Capricorn. We had Scorpio rising, puts the Cap stellium in the second house. We had Sun within 6 degrees applying to Pluto, which was trining Uranus in Taurus and sextile to Neptune in Pisces. And we also had Mercury trining Jupiter, or applying to a trine with Jupiter in Taurus, and both of those planets sextiling the conjunction of the moon and Saturn in early Pisces. So we have 2-ish grand sextiles if you use a larger orb that would be happening while this they both come into a more perfect grand sextile while this is happening. So We have Sun and Pluto being intensity and what's happening, the main story, the ego, the like eye of the world, and the outermost limits, like the objective reality, the intensity, the dark, deep, down underground stuff. And Mars, the planet of action, happenings, squaring or trining Jupiter, expansion, growth. Let's just get into this. Happened here on at 5:30 a.m. Let's just look at some of those things. We had Sun trining the midheaven. We also had Venus squaring the midheaven at this time. We also had pretty much like the moon applying to a conjunction with Saturn. And through this eruption time, through the time that we see in the yellow, orange, red, that would be the time that the moon was going through its exact conjunction with Saturn. And then we move to the time of the eruption. And that is when we have the rising in Taurus, 0 degrees of Taurus. And because the previous one, we had the rising in Scorpio. Now we have the rising in Taurus. And as I said on the first slide, Taurus and Scorpio both have a lot to do with earthquake signifiers. We have everything. We had that cap stellium kind of centered around the midheaven at the time of the exact eruption. We also had Venus in Sagittarius in the 8th house. The 8th house is death, destruction, what belongs to other people, but also all of us. Oh, I forgot to mention that the 2nd house, where this began, where the 2nd house is where the Capricorn stellium was located when the earthquake swarm that triggered this eruption began. And the 2nd house is associated with Taurus. And it is also in the Hellenistic astrology called the place of the entrance to hell, the gates of Hades. It's the entrance to the earth. And then when we go into, and that had also a right. So we had the stellium in the 2nd house, which is associated with Taurus in modern astrology. We had the rising in Scorpio, almost exactly opposite that Uranus in Taurus. Then we had at the actual eruption, the rising was put at 0 degrees of Taurus, putting Jupiter and Uranus in the 1st house of Taurus. And that all trining that big stellium in Capricorn. And that also put Venus in Sagittarius in the 8th house, which is the Scorpio-ish house we can think of as like death. With the 2nd house being the entrance to Hades and the 8th house being the spiritual entrance to the underworld and the death stuff. So we have the aesthetic planet of Venus in the mutable fire sign of Sagittarius, which is the aesthetics of apocalyptic scenes with moving fire. Mutable fire screams lava to me. And Venus is the aesthetics. And we had the midheaven of this moment exactly between, like at the midpoint of Mercury and Mars. Mars being that electrical planet that has been helping charge up the Earth with all of this action ever since Mars went from Sagittarius to its exaltation in Capricorn. It has been charging up the Earth to get ready for these big eruptive moments. And this eruption could last for hours, days, weeks. It could last up until and through this Sun conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, because the Sun is now within 6 degrees of meeting Pluto. And remember, on January 20th is when we're going to get Pluto and Sun moving into Aquarius. So I'm really interested to see when that'll happen, or how long this lava flow will last. We also have, now that we are in the moment of the eruption, we've got the moon making its way past Saturn. So the moon between the earthquake swarm and the eruption moved over the degree where Saturn is and is now on the other side of Saturn in Pisces. And it was almost exactly sextiling Jupiter in Taurus. Again, another indicator of potential earthquake and volcanic activity. We also see that we have Venus is semisextile. Venus is not semisextile, that's quintile to Uranus. I've got all the minor aspects turned on as well because I've started looking into vibrational astrology, because that is where most astrometeorology information resonates with me. And then we're up near the Arctic Circle, so our houses are really compressed. But this is why I put it on Placidus instead of full houses, or equal houses, because you can see that having such a large 12th house puts Pluto, Pluto, Saturn, Moon, Neptune, and Chiron in the North Node all in that 12th house. So that is going to indicate some larger cosmic goings on. It's really exciting for me to see this kind of stuff. Cap stellium in the 9th house, it's not really in the 9th house. Mercury is Venus is in the 8th house, Mercury's in the 9th house, Mars is in the 10th house, and Sun is in 11th, and Pluto is in the 12th. These are all within very close aspect to each other, but in different houses. We could break that down if we wanted to, but I have too much to cover in this stream, so I'm not going to break down exactly what all of that is. But just saying, this is very interesting mundane astrology to have so many things in Earth and also have this eruption triggered by Mercury moving into Capricorn. I mean, it is almost an exact Ingress correlation. I believe the Ingress was over here. When we go back to looking at the earthquake swarm, I've got that graph at the top of the screen you see there that indicates the intensity and time of the earthquakes in the Reykjanes Peninsula. We see that they kind of peaked off right when Mercury would have been moving into Capricorn, because the time, 5:30 a.m., that they've been reporting as the start of the earthquake swarm is just minutes into 0 degrees of Capricorn for Mercury's transit. So it'll be really interesting to see mundane astrologers analyze this. I'm going to continue to analyze this with some of the new references I have. I've got, I didn't go back to, let's go back to the Grindavik eruption slide. You can see the plot of these earthquakes. They actually moved down the peninsula from the northeastern part of the peninsula along the edge of the plate boundary deep into Grindavik. And actually what happened is it did erupt kind of where the hazard map showed, north of where they had been building a retaining wall. You can see the retaining walls in the lower right-hand corner of this slide. The retaining walls are marked in orange, and the actual eruption line is marked in red there for the current eruption. And you can kind of see at the top of that image, the purple area indicates where there was the December 18th eruption. So you can see that the eruption kind of breached the wall underground. The fissure that opened up has gone inside of the boundary of the lava diversion wall and is setting some of those houses on fire in the edge of the town. Now, there weren't as many people in the town now as there were on December 18th that had to evacuate, but there are a few hundred people, like, for example, the fish processing unit, one of the it's a fishing village, so they have a processing warehouse for the fish that come in off the boats. They had already started repairing that and sending people back to work, mostly migrant workers, back to work in that fish processing house. And a lot of the people who came back to Grindavik, the couple hundred people who had come back to town, were people who either couldn't afford to miss work fishing or couldn't afford to be renting or staying with friends and family across the peninsula. Possible they didn't have anywhere else to go. And there haven't been many there's no evacuation like FEMA shelter type. Like, I mean, they don't have FEMA there, but like what we would think of, like, well, won't they build some FEMA houses? Like, they don't have that built up because they've sent people to live in other parts of Iceland. What I'm saying is, it's pretty funny to me that they completely finished the wall around the Blue Lagoon and the power plant before they even began working on the wall around Grindavik. And now most of the lava has flown around the part of the wall that they've built in Grindavik and underneath it as well. Now, I'm not an expert on why they built the walls where they did. It has to do with elevation, and parts where there isn't wall built, it's very flat ground, and so they expect the lava to move slowly above ground there. But still, I don't quite understand why they were trying to send people back to work in that fish processing unit. And there are actively workers on the ground in Grindavik right now, still building up those retaining walls, still adding more material to the retaining walls, trying to keep as much lava from flowing into the town as possible. However, as we saw with the last eruption, the fissure that erupts does not necessarily, just because there is a known location of a fissure eruption doesn't mean that it won't erupt anywhere else. How could I say that more clearly? It's possible that more fissures could open up into the town. We don't know how this is going to flow yet, but it will be evolving and continuing to erupt. Now, this isn't even the only volcano erupting in the world. There are actual volcanoes that aren't doing fissure eruptions, but like classical conical volcano type eruptions in Indonesia, Sumatra. We've got them still going off in Peru. We've still got a lot of volcanoes going off, but I've got to direct our attention to Grindavik right now because this is what we've been looking at, and there is just such significant astrology around this. Significant mundane astrology. And when I say mundane, I mean talking about physical happenings of the earth. It's a whole type of astrology called mundane astrology that weather forecasting with astrology falls under. Astrometeorology does. And yeah, with the eruption beginning right as that stellium, like the earthquake swarm happening when the stellium is in the second house and the eruption happening when the stellium is at the midheaven, just is so beautiful to me. I love seeing the astrology play out. Now, I probably would have expected this more if I had done the reading I did last night any sooner. Last night, I got into some reading about the history of astrometeorology and started seeing that Mercury is a significant trigger planet for volcanic and earthquake activity. The other major players in that are Pluto, Saturn, and Mars, which we have been seeing, and Jupiter and Uranus, all working really hard together in the astrology of the past month to set up something happening in the Pisces, Taurus, Capricorn realms. And that just screams volcano erupting near a fishing village to me. A fishing village? Really? Pisces? We got 3 planets in Pisces and there's a fishing village eruption. Okay, let's just move on to, because that is not even our only story today. We've also got snow in Southtown. Little reference to some American Christmas movie there. The snow in Southtown is I'm showing on the null Earth image in the bottom left-hand corner that is showing the snow activity. That's a kind of a good imagining. That's a good visual of where there is snow. We've also got the image of the microwave bands of the GOES 16 satellite up in the top. That dark red color is where we're going to expect snow. The dark blue is where it's not quite happening. And the part, if we were watching this as a GIF, you would see that area where there's yellow speckled into the red as shimmery. The red is the high deep clouds, and where it shimmers in is even higher clouds, and those are vertically thick. This means a lot of snow, southern snow, happening right here. And in the bottom right hand corner, you can see the Storm Prediction Center's current frontal analysis, along with the millibars in purple or in brown there. So you can see the joining of that. You can see right between Texas and Louisiana, there's that center of circulation. That's not exactly where the storm is. That is where the center of the circulation is. And most of the storm is happening up above that cold front level into the Mississippi Valley region, into Tennessee, into the Ohio River Valley region. We've also got a major lake effect snow blizzard happening up in upstate New York. You can't see it super well on these because I've optimized these images for the southern snow, but we actually had to the Buffalo Bills playoff game wasn't just canceled by the NFL, it was canceled by the governor of New York. The governor of New York said, like, it's not going to be safe for people. Bills fans will go out in whatever weather if the Bills are playing. And we can't have people on the roads right now because they're expecting feet of snow within days because of that lake effect snow machine that's been happening up there. It's the lake effect snow machine, like I talked about in entrainment earlier, like last week. Lake effect snow works a little bit off of that, where having so much snow will also cool off as moisture gets pulled off of the lake. It also is cooling down the lake, because in order for the water to evaporate, there has to be some heat spent on heat. Energy needs to be spent on moving lake water into surface water. So it's getting even colder and colder up there. The more lake effect snow that happens, the colder and wetter it's getting up in the Great Lakes region. And that makes the lake effect snow machine go brrr, snow machine go brrr. So let's go now to, you can watch several storm chasers who are live storm chasing both in Buffalo and in Tennessee. Reed Timmer is down in Tennessee. He's a very popular streamer, and we've also got several up in Buffalo. If you use the Radar Omega app, then you can go see where all of the storm chasers are on the map with the radar. Now, let's go to earthquakes. We've had more earthquakes along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Those are shallow fives that have been spreading. We've also got deeper quakes happening. You can see in the Fiji region in South America, and we've got mid-level earthquakes happening down in Indonesia, Central America, and Albania. Now, Dutch Sense had a very good analysis released yesterday, about 18 hours ago, 20 hours ago, of the earthquake swarms happening, spreading across the region. And he goes into more detail about the earthquakes that are moving across the North American craton. Those are those smaller earthquakes you see moving from Alaska down the coast of Canada into the coast of the United States. And then they go from the coast of the United States across both up in, which way? Oh yeah, this is the way that the map is. Sorry, my camera is flipped, so I have to make sure that I'm doing my hands the same direction of the map. So coming down the coast, they went both into the Yellowstone National Park area. You can barely see them up there because they're basically trimmers, and also down around the bend of the Rockies into the heart of Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri. And those will continue moving northeast, like go down south and get vertically mixed along the New Madrid seismic zone. We're expecting earthquakes basically where there are blizzards right now. So that's really exciting to me too, because I find the relationship between water and electricity and earth movement and electricity to be very overlooked in modern geosciences. I think that all of it is electrical, and we need to understand how it induces resonance with itself and each other. It's also interesting to see snow getting dumped on the majority of the craton part and not really on the coastal part. Let me go back to this. You see that this this storm is kind of coming along the path that you expect earthquakes to come down. There is a pattern, there is a flow of where seismic activity will flow in the United States. That's not common. That's not commonly accepted by seismologists right now, but it will be. Basically, that as the continents move one way, as the plates move one way, the vibrations of the plates will move the other way. So that's why you'll see arrows on Dutch census maps going the opposite direction of the movement of the tectonic plates. It's because the plates are moving in a direction, but the vibration moves in the opposite direction of where the plates are moving. And you can kind of see where they're expecting a lot of snow is where we're expecting the earthquakes. Where we're a little more shielded by the Appalachian Mountains in the Carolinas, that's where we are not as susceptible to earthquakes. But even when you look at the area close to like Swain County or like really far southwestern North Carolina counties, there was an earthquake there. There are earthquakes that occur at that edge of the big chunks of ancient billion-year-old rock in the Appalachian Mountains. I expect that some of this movement coming down through the North American craton possibly has something to do with the eruption in Iceland, because we were expecting momentum to be like the vibrations as the plates are pulling apart at the mid-Atlantic ridge. We expect vibrations from each of those plates to shake into that void. We expect the vibrations as they move this way. Think of the thick, solid crust moving this way, meaning that in their wake, there is thinner crust, there's thinner amounts of earth. There are more volatile, hotter plumes of magma in the area where it's separating. That's going to jiggle more than a bigger rock. The smaller rocks jiggle more than the bigger rocks. So while we wouldn't see, for example, like in the middle of Canada, we wouldn't see a big earthquake in the random middle of Canada unless we're near drill points. Because the rock is solid, earthquakes present themselves where there are weaknesses in the plate structure. So from both sides, from North America and from Europe, we had earthquake swarms coming at the Icelandic region. And over the past few days, you saw coming in from the North Sea, you saw more north to south movement of volcanoes, or of earthquakes. Sorry, I'm getting so tongue-tied today because I am just so excited. We also had some solar activity today. I've got a still image of one of the larger CMEs. We had a CME with a type 4 halo possibility, which means possibility of a complete or partial halo. And that's when like the whole sun induces the resonance with the whole sun is induced by the coronal mass and ejection that will also offset an entire thing. And with those halo type events, you typically see a little bit more elevated proton flux. And you see that right here. I didn't get it in the screenshot, but our less than 10 megavolts type of proton radiation did start to increase today around the time of the eruption. Now, I'm not saying that is causing. I'm saying that these are all coincident. These are coincidences because coincident means an incident, a co-occurring incident. These are coincidental. And I don't think coincidence means that nothing happened. I think that coincidence means that we don't understand the underlying causation yet. So I want to stress that I'm not calling any of this causation. I am calling this all coincidental, interestingly, because also let's look at where we had a C-class flare go almost all the way to an M-class flare, again, today at 12 noon UTC, which is the time when the eruption happened in Grindavik. So very interesting space weather there. That brings me to, can I click on the link from in here? No, I can't click on the link from in here. I want to go back to sharing a screen. Let me take the slides off real quick and hide on stream. Hello guys. Hi. It's a lot happening right now. So I'm trying not to waste your time too badly. Let me pull up. I'm going to pull up my slides. I've got a slightly different setup. You can see me looking off to the left a little bit. That is because I've got my stream on my larger monitor right here, and my camera is right here. But I'm going to be pulling up my web pages to share with you on this other one. Let's see. I wanted to look at, yeah, let's go ahead and share this tab. This one. Okay. And show on stream. Oh, no, not that. I don't want to show that on stream. I want to show the tab on stream. Okay. There we go. So this is where we can see that the earthquake swarm has continued to move through the Reykjanes Peninsula and even out into the Reykjanes Ridge. Let me show you. This just shows the peninsula. This shows the ridge. And we had a 3 off in the ridge, or 3 or greater. We also had several 3 or magnitude 3 or greater, that's the little stars, earthquakes on the peninsula itself. But this entire ridge should be vibrating, and we see that it is. Let's see. I also wanted to show weekly overview. No, I wanted to show the North Sea, North Atlantic. Yeah. So let's see if this will animate, or if okay. This is kind of the ridge coming down and along through here. This is the direction that the earthquakes flowed. This is the direction that they came from Europe, and then this is the direction that they came from North America, and they're all meeting here at Iceland. And you see that we also have more activity here in the Grimsvatn and Vatnajökull stratovolcano. We didn't have anything up here where we saw something earlier in the, but we did see, a very recent earthquake right here. Let's go to, let's go to, did I want to go to interactive earthquake browser? I want to go to earthquake 3D. Let me make sure I can pull that up. All right, let's share this tab instead. Okay, so here we have earthquake 3D. Not showing everything because, again, this is only from the GFS or the USGS, I believe. Where are we showing some? We had earthquakes along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. We had, let's see, 4.5, 4.8 in Iceland. This was that 5.0 we had. There was a 6. I feel like other agencies reported it as a 7 here in Afghanistan. And let's see, we're continuing to have 6s erupt down here, spreading out along the plate boundaries. Again, please watch Dutch Sense instead of me to explain how earthquakes flow, because he's got a really good understanding of it. Very interesting. He also has some interesting points to make about how where there are places where we go into and out of the earth, like in the Fiji Islands area. He's got some interesting thoughts about how that energy can transfer through the earth to the antipode, or the exact opposite side of the earth. So let's go ahead and turn on inside, because then you can see kind of the straight lines opposite where these are going. See how everybody's got a little partner somewhere? Now, I don't like that it's not showing the earthquakes in the interior US, but let me go to a different earthquake viewer to see that. Let's go to the, let's go to interactive earthquake browser. Share this tab instead. And let's look at time range from latest available, from let's do from 2 days ago to latest available. And magnitude range all, depth range all. I had it bookmarked for watching those shallow 4s go across the plates. And you can kind of see that where I've got it before I reload it. You can kind of see that spread of the shallow 4s all around significant. Okay, let's just animate this. Let's bring this up and animate it. Beautiful. Let's do. Watch them populate. Very interesting. Let's see. Play. Play. There we go. See them popping up all over. And we're watching the spread. Watch the spread. See a lot more popping up. We on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And we had more popping up. We went through this boundary all the way to Puerto Rico, where there's that bend in the plate. Again, the place where we're getting eruptions and volcanoes, again, is a bend in the plate. I think that these are places that kind of attenuate the energy. And these junction points are also places that will attenuate energy. Very interesting. Let's go look at America more. If it'll load. Yeah. Oklahoma is a Swiss cheese of drill points, basically. And I'm not saying that oil and gas is bad. I'm just saying that it's interesting to note how many earthquakes start to swarm around places where the earth has been fractured. I'm not saying anything's good or bad. I'm just saying it's interesting to note where these show up in the allegedly stable North American craton. They go down and around. It's not really showing as much as I would like to see. Let's go to let's take a look at null Earth to see where our winds will be going. Let's see what kind of weather's going to be coming from the United States into Iceland. Currently very cold across most of the United States. I've just gone outside here in the mountains of the Appalachian Mountains, and it's still relatively warm here when you're not on the windward side of the mountains. It's still, we've got that like insulating blanket of mountain kind of keeping us insulated here. But you can see the polar air sweeping down. Let's look at through the upper layers of the earth or of the atmosphere. We can see yet another storm brewing off here. This is the big lake effect snow machine that's kind of hovering around the Hudson Bay, centered around the Hudson Bay, is just swirling all this coldness and moisture together to keep that lake effect snow going. But where we'll see some impacts in Iceland from this is up in the upper levels. Here we go. Starting to see, it looks like won't be seeing too much move that way yet, but we do have the wind going strongly from Iceland into Europe. So Europeans are probably thinking, oh no, will the airline travel be affected like when we had the eruption back in 2010? I don't think so, because it's a different type of eruption. This is a fissure eruption that's like, yeah, it's got gases, but it's not that massive vertical plume that'll get into the stratosphere the way that a traditional volcano eruption would be. Now, I find it so interesting to watch like vertically through the atmosphere. Let's look at the Mercury index at the surface. The misery index is a very funny one. It's got both it's too cold and it's too hot. It is miserable up in these areas. Let's look now at our forecast. Let's go to pivotal weather and or no, I actually want to go see I want to see GOES data. Let's look at the derived winds. I'm trying to load just one tab at a time because there's so much to talk about tonight that I couldn't pre-pull up all the tabs and still be broadcasting. It would have just crashed my stream. So when you go into the night, this is called, what do they call it? Geocolor. When it's derived winds over geocolor. And again, remember that red is the uppermost level, blue is the mid level, and yellow is the lower level winds. We've got lower level winds moving moisture from the Gulf of Mexico into Texas, and then the upper level winds bringing that moisture up to the level of freezing, and that is causing this big swath of snowstorms basically all through this area, Got lots of snowstorms. This whole area. And then this is getting into the lake effect snowland. But this storm is the first time that much of these states have seen snow in over a year, maybe 2 years. People forgetting how to drive, infrastructure, forgetting how to be cold. We'll expect all of that. We'll also expect probably power outages. There was a lot of freezing rain and ice in the Arklatex region, which is the Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas region. That's where the moisture came in and didn't quite have enough time to turn into snow, but it's still freezing cold, so it freezes on contact. Sometimes the water stay liquid well into freezing temperatures, but due to its movement, it can't settle into the crystalline structure of an ice crystal yet. So that's where we get freezing rain, is when we have super cooled water. Super cooled is where it should be freezing, but it is in so much motion that it can't find a crystalline structure to become ice until it touches something, slows down enough to realize, oh my gosh, I'm freezing, and freezes on contact. I know I personify the weather a lot, but I think it's easiest for us to understand when you use wants and needs and desires to talk about what a air mass is doing, because that's what we have vocabulary for right now. Let's look at that microwave in motion. It'll show the cloud phase. And you can see what I was talking about with these high, thick clouds. They're kind of thinning out into the orange region, which, again, high, thick, very cold is that 10 sparkly. High, thick is 9 near black, and 10 is high and thick. Or near black is thin, I'm sorry. Where's that orange? What did it say? Well, purple is very thin ice clouds, and those probably won't snow. That's what we're seeing into the Piedmont and the Carolinas, is why we're getting a whole lot of snow there. Can we look even smaller? No, we can't. Kind of can zoom in, but not really. Yeah, this is just spells a lot of snow across the deep south. Or deep south, upper deep south, I guess. The above I-10 deep south. There, Reed Timmer keeps calling this the I-40 ripper, because it is kind of just ripping right along I-40. Like, if you were headed west on I-40 right now, good luck, because that you are going straight into the snowstorm. Let's see. Mid-thick ice water clouds are that puce green, yellow. I really don't like the color grading on this, but we're gonna, it'll be okay. Let's look at the sandwich now. Sandwich smushes down a lot of levels of the infrared shortwave bands. Visual bandwidth, IR band. So the IR band is what's getting us. So you see how some of this looks like it's just sticking around? That's actually not clouds. That's air so cold that it looks like it should be a cloud top. And that's where our big polar blast is coming and cooled off most of the northern plains in the central US. And then our motion is where we're seeing the snowstorms. Now, this going over and getting eaten up by the mountains, that's why we're only expecting snowfall in southwestern North Carolina, but we are still expecting some all over Tennessee. So we're kind of in the rain shadow in western North Carolina here. Also, West Virginia being a little bit protected, but they've gotten a bunch of snow anyway, so they don't need it. And we see that southern tropical jet going straight off this way. But when our lower level winds, you saw the derived winds were showing that stuff was moving from this conveyor belt into the United States, that's where we're getting the moisture from. So we're getting all the cold from here, the moisture from here, and that makes a snow machine. Let's see. What else do I want to bring up today? basically overall very interesting. Oh, I wanted to bring up pivotal weather because I wanted to show a bit of the forecast. Again, I'm a recapper. I'm not a forecaster. So I don't like to forecast too much because I'm not quite there yet. I still feel I have a lot more research to do this year when it comes to mundane astrology and integrating that into my forecasts. Let's look at this. Let's share this tab. Thank you, Pivotal Weather. Everyone, follow them. This is where we're expecting our winter storm. These pink counties, really not reaching into North Carolina or most of Georgia, South Carolina at all. We are looking at flood warnings, though, there. And that's from the band of moisture still finding its way into the United States. It's just that cold air. You know how I talked about that cold pool doesn't want to go over the mountains, not really finding its home here. So that's why we're getting there. There has been significant flooding across the Southeast that hasn't experienced the parts of the Southeast that have not experienced the winter weather have experienced significant winter rainfall, which is leading to flooding because colder ground can't take as much water in. All affects infiltration. Let's look at snowfall analysis. 24-hour snowfall. This is just the past 24-hour snowfall. These are all analysis. So let's go into forecast land. Expecting that cold to come in, really dipping deeply down into Texas. There was also a playoff game down there. Green Bay just absolutely kicking Texas butt, which it's an indoor stadium. Still wonder if even their coldness outside of the stadium had any psychological effect on Green Bay, just absolutely dominating in that game. Let's look. We're still keeping a nice warm region in this coastal southeastern area, and in the more continental southeast, we are getting freezing cold. Let's go to forecast. Let's look at. I want to look at models, actually. I don't want to look at forecast. I want to look at GFS. And let's do which parameter do we want to do? Let's do winter weather. Let's look at the Kuchera ratio. Well, this is by Evan Kuchera, back in 2004, had a really interesting analysis of the snow liquid ratio. Now that tells you what kind of snow it's going to be. Is it going to be a fluffy snow, a grippy snow, a yucky snow? This has to do with the temperature that the air was at the level of the atmosphere where the snow formed. So that determines the quality of the snow, basically. So we're showing snow to liquid ratios of extremely fluffy up in the orange regions. That means extremely fluffy, and more liquidy, even wintry mix type snow down here in the south. That's like, this is where you're getting into, is it even snow or is it sleet? Like the snow to liquid mixing ratio, I think, has a interesting indication of what quality of winter storm we're going to have. Let's also look at total snowfall that we're expecting. And interesting about the Kuchera ratio is that he used basically what anyone would measure snow as the snowfall depth, rather than using an official meteorological instrument of a snowboard, which is like a board that's got measurements on it, and you have to slough off the snow every certain amount of time to take those measurements. He did it for what normal average people, non-meteorologists, would be measuring. So it's interesting that I think the more generalizable and aesthetic your the more aesthetic, the easier to understand your measurement types are, I find the more accurate they're going to be. His snow to liquid ratio is heralded as one of the most accurate models that we have right now. Let's see, total snowfall depth, positive change. This should show, oh man, it's so slow. It's loading so slow. Sweeping down across that Mississippi River Valley all the way up into the Ohio River Valley, just really on that western side of the Appalachian Mountains. And we see more swooping down in from the Pacific Northwest too. We're not going to be, this isn't over. This isn't ending. You can see this is why the Buffalo game was called off. That's, what is that? A snowfall change depth of like 60 inches, 5 feet in just this forecast amount. And they've also had snowstorms for the past 3 or 4 weeks. Very, very, very snowy conditions up in the upstate New York and Buffalo areas. Let's see, we don't see a whole lot coming into the south after this snowstorm, but we do expect a lot. Like, that is a significant amount of snow, like a foot of snow, possibly upwards of a foot of snow in Tennessee. That's a big snowstorm for us. That is a big snowstorm for the South. So very interesting to see all of the astrology that's happening with Iceland's eruption also coinciding with the first major snow in the southeastern U.S. of the season. Very interesting to see what all these coincidences are. Let me go ahead and stop sharing. Because I'm getting up on an hour. I tried to talk as fast as I could to not make this like a full hour, but I could just go on and on about this. I'm very interested to see when the astrology podcast updates. Many astrology podcasts will do a recap of what happened in the past month, but the astrology podcast itself does a monthly review every month that they have their new monthly forecast come out. I'm really looking forward to seeing what who Chris Brennan has on there for next month, if he has any mundane astrologers or people well versed in astrometeorology, to see if they're to explore these mundane connections. If there's nobody rising to the top, let me put my name out there. I'm trying to this year I really plan to buckle down and learn a lot more, both astrologically and geologically, so that maybe by this time next year, by 2025, when all of this is popping off, because guys, remember, this is 2024. This is just the beginning of our big energy changes to the world structure, the world power structure. It'll be really interesting to see who Chris Brennan gets on the astrology podcast to analyze this earthquake event. I don't believe that his typical guests are as nerdy about earth sciences as might be needed to understand this, but I don't understand. I don't know if I understand. I would love to consult as a meteorologist to astrologers. So if there are any astrologers out there who are looking for a meteorologist friend, let me know. I'm here. So let's go ahead and get a energy update, a reading of the vibes. Let's see what my cards want to talk about today. What's the theme of the way the world works today? Wake up, sleepy. Mercury is in Capricorn, and we are doing stuff. The Earth is doing its thing. Man, I mean, I know a stellium in Capricorn with Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus and Saturn and Pisces conjunct the moon being like, yeah, of course we're going to see some eruptions right now. But I guess I didn't quite expect Mercury to be such an important trigger, but it makes a lot of sense that it's the closest to the sun. It's the most magnetic. It has to do with knowledge, waves, cycles, balances between masculine and feminine. And when you think about balancing between masculine and feminine and being mercurial, I think of storms. I think of the mixing of the warm and cold air, of the moist and dry air, the balance between the two polarities. Mercury being that like equivalency, that balance is just really interesting to me. And as I'm researching some older texts about astrometeorology, I'm finding that they're saying that Mercury is a really important trigger planet for setting off the large energetic accumulations that get brought in by the slower moving planets of Pluto, Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter, and Uranus, all of them being important for different reasons. Venus can't be discounted as well, though. Venus also has to do with this, but it is a different quality of influence by Venus because she is such a magnetic planet. Magnetism having to do with the feminine and electricity having to do with the masculine, and electromagnetism being, again, that mercurial balance. Let's see what our cards. I haven't tuned into the cards as I've been talking. I've just been talking to them, I guess. Let's see what we're going to say today. I think they want 2 today. So, again, we're reminded again that first I seek joy and all else follows. Since your feeling of joy is your indication of your connection with Source, once you have achieved joy, you have achieved connection with Source. And under these circumstances, all that is good follows. So I'm following my joy on this stream. I love talking about the weather and astrology, and I consider volcanoes and earthquakes and solar eruptions to be part of the weather. So let's see what else we got here. We got a new one, and it's got a snowstorm on it. Isn't that fun? Oh my gosh, that's so cute that we got a big snowy blizzard one for today. The harder I push against it, the more I attract its essence. So not only do we attract joy and get joy when we attract it, but the harder we push against something, the more we attract it as well. It's our attention. So let's see. When it says, when you find some unwanted thing that you want to shout no at, shout briefly, and then turn your attention to the thing you do want, to your joy. Any attention to anything is practicing of the vibration that will bring it to you. So the more you're focusing on the negativity, the more you focus on the snowstorm, the harder the snowstorm gets. That's why I try not to dwell on any one tragedy too long. I like to think about what I would like to see happen. I have found that happens as I'm watching. Weather is the most immediate, the most immediate response to your attention, in my opinion, in my experience. Weather and your attention of it is the easiest way to see that attention is intention, is reality. So remember that you can attract both joy and that which you fear by paying attention to it. So let's not focus on the negative too much with these stories. Let's focus on what we can learn from it. Let's focus on the connection between spirituality and science and how that can make us stronger scientists in the future. I feel like since the universe is not discrete, the universe is a continuous function, there's no discretion between one thing or another. It's all gradients, and we call them different disciplines, but the gradients move into each other as if they're octaves vibrating higher. Resonance, tuning, waves, octaves, that is how all of these geophysical systems interact with the solar system and the cosmos itself. And the cosmos itself wants us to remember that, especially with Mercury and Capricorn, if you dwell on the negative, you'll attract more negative. It's in science, there is an opposites attract hegemony that doesn't like to admit that there are ways in which a system can be like attracts like. But that happens in the weather. Like attracts like in cloud condensation nuclei and in cloud formation, because there's a like attracts like process is hiding the internal unlikeness of each one. So the like is attracted to the unlikeness in the other like, but you just see it as like attracting like. So that's kind of like, there are internal oppositions to everything. I want to get more into the way that clouds form in another update. I want to get more into the way that charges and electricity act in our atmosphere. But I am already over an hour today, and I swear I'm not trying to drag these things out. When I started, I was at like 30-minute averages, and now I'm averaging an hour. And I swear that's not to try to get my view time up. I'm just more interested and invested in each area that I'm talking about now. So don't forget to go to the Icelandic Meteorological Office to check out their coverage. They've got way better videos and photos and updates of the volcanoes than I do. I'm kind of regurgitating what they've gotten. Don't forget to follow local drone pilots in Iceland, because there's some really cool footage you can see. Don't forget to actually become a patron or donate to all the sources that I am using in my forecasts. I also could be patronized. If you want to patronize me, you can. There are links in the description. If you want to be a patron of me, don't forget that in my coffee account, you can get a coloring book of the month club for $10 a month. I will color a new coloring book page with you. So nobody's joined it yet, so I haven't sent out a new one, but I am making them. So that's about all I've got for you today. I mean, it's not all I've got for you today. I could talk forever, but I'm going to let you go and watch other live streams, because it's really cool to see some of these drone flyovers of the active volcano. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great evening. Remember to focus on what you want to attract and not what you don't want to attract. Yeah. Have a great evening. Thanks, guys.